I fully accept that the bill which has been proposed today could be on second and third stage and fourth stage indeed improved and made more specific and the like. But the principle of the bill seems to have universal support in this House. And that's the first thing I want to say. I also want to welcome the Minister here today. The second thing I want to say is that the principle of age limits being monitored by domestic legislation in respect of other member states is already breached, if you like, in the government's proposed legislation in respect of the sale of tobacco products to persons under the age of 21, in which age verification procedures are imposed on any country within the European Union which proposes to sell tobacco products online into Ireland. We do, in those circumstances, require that any such sale by an online process can only be done by somebody who respects and implements age verification, which would, if this tobacco bill becomes law, be restricting the age of which cross-border tobacco sales can take place to people over the age of 21 and requires age verification to achieve that end. The other point that I would like to make is this, that whereas it's all very well in EU terms to say that the principle of origin applies, what about online access to non-EU sites? That's a point which strikes me as we can put all our eggs in the EU basket and require the European Commission and Comisiún na Meán to implement EU standards as best they can. But I wonder about access to entirely foreign and non-EU websites and sources of material, and I wonder, has that been considered? And given that the state, that the government rather, is not opposing this bill and that it will eventually, if time permits, go to a committee stage, it seems to me that those kind of issues should be considered in that context rather than simply thrown out as seemingly insurmountable objects to dealing with the issues that I have raised. Those are a few comments that I want to make in support of the principle of this legislation. And in general, I want to make one further point. We seem to be ambivalent on the subject of childhood in this country. There are people who are saying, I think including the Minister's party, that children under the age of 18 should be allowed vote in Dáil elections. You know, adolescence means becoming an adult. And we have fixed an age of majority at the age of 18. And people argue that somehow it would be a good idea if people who we do not permit to smoke, do not permit to buy a lottery ticket, do not permit to go into the contract of marriage, do not permit to go into licensed premises except in certain circumstances, that we say that they are nonetheless mature enough to make decisions about national political issues. And you know, the Constitution was amended in the Fourth Amendment to bring the voting age down from 21 to 18, but it left, for instance, the age qualification to be a member of Seanad Éireann or the Dáil at 21. And it seems to me, just on a general point, that there is confusion about the status of childhood and when it ends and why it should end and why it's important that it should be protected. if a child or a young person under the age of 18 commits a murder, they're given anonymity and they're not subject to mandatory sentences because of their immaturity. On the other hand, we as a society are invited by some people who I think a lot of it is based on the proposition that they feel that their particular ideologies would be more attractive to immature minds, to back extending voting rights to them. I believe in childhood, and I believe that there has to be an age of majority, that we have to be consistent in its application, that there's no need to end childhood or to dilute it. It's under sufficient pressure as things stand at the moment, I would argue, you know, from pornography, from social media generally, and I'm not talking about sexual matters only. I'm talking about bullying, opinion forming, falsehood, false information, misinformation. You know, young people are subject to extraordinary pressures in this day and age, and I just want to say that we must, as a society, be coherent and consistent in our approach to whether people are or are not adults, and we shouldn't begin to chip away at that principle when it suits us and invoke it, for instance, in relation to asylum seekers being totally differently treated under the age of 18 when it doesn't suit us. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Conan, do you